Hi friends, and welcome. On today's adventure, one of our youngest pro staffers, Miss Katie Bear Lilly, and I are headed out to a mid-Michigan farm to do some youth season deer hunting. And I have to tell you, we're certainly hoping to put some of that summer fat and speed beef in the freezer, but these trips, at least for me, are a lot more about education than they are about harvest. See, I know I'm not always going to be here. And if I don't teach my young people now how to do the scouting and the setup, the real nuts and bolts of a deer hunt, well then the ties that bind us to the life and the land that we enjoy may well come undone, and I'll have only myself to blame. So, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're about to get real in the deer woods right now.
Are you ready? All right, let's go.
Despite a little yawning, we were ready, and not long after first light, our first deer. A young doe was working its way out in front of the blind. She seemed a little nervous. We had a turkey decoy out, and she stared at that for quite some time. Kate and I agreed that this wasn't a shooter, so we just sat there watching her. Until finally she got a little too nervous and moved off. Hopefully we'd see some more deer, but this was already a success in my mind. And speaking of more deer, not 20 minutes later, out across the hayfield, there were some more does and fawns working their way out. These were definitely too far, but we were seeing deer, they were moving, and that's all it really takes on a deer hunt to keep you sitting on the edge of your seat. All we needed was for one of these deer to feed its way across, or for another to get a little closer. Either way, we were in it.
Hopefully there'll be some more. Yep. There's some more deer. See them?
10 minutes after that doe and fawn left, some more deer were working their way into the field.
That's probably the one that's up behind us. They're looking back. There might be more coming.
This doe stood there staring back into the trees, a dead giveaway that more deer are coming. The second deer out appeared to be a young spike buck. Now, Katie had already decided she was going to wait for a mature buck if she shot one, at least something 2 years old, so this one was in no real danger even if he walked up in front of us. Still, it was nice to see a buck, and generally this time of year bucks travel in bachelor groups, so we had some hope that this might be the first of perhaps several.
It's a spike buck. There's a doe and a fawn. See, I'm pushing that fawn around. That's just what they're kind of going the other way. Okay.
These deer were moving off in the wrong direction. Still, we'd already seen 5 or 6 deer. It had me feeling pretty good about our chances. All we needed now was for one to come in our direction, and Katie was going to get her chance.
Call him over here. Say, come here, dear. Come here. Crawl them over here. Say, come here, dear. Say, come here. No, they won't come. Have you tried it? No.
Even though Kate wasn't ready to try her personal deer call yet, things were going pretty good. Kate and I were seeing deer. In fact, we were seeing quite a few, and we'd already agreed that she would try to harvest a mature doe or a mature buck, pass on some of the younger deer for now. All we really needed to do was get one of those does or a buck a little bit closer. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before even more deer started working their way out into the field.
Starting to get some action. There's more deer over there in the corner. Coming out right there. All we need is for them to come closer. One in the very front's the best of them.
There were a couple of deer back in the north corner, and a couple of does and fawns were working their way in from out by the road.
Anyone, try the big one in the middle there.
There were deer wandering all over this field, with the exception of right in front of where we were sitting.
Okay.
Still, this was an excellent opportunity for Kate to practice getting on them and finding them in the scope.
Front shoulder, see if you can get on it. Just for practice. Keep your finger off the trigger. Atta girl. Easy. Don't go too far. Yes, you see her. Let me just turn your head around. That better. Okay. The way they're all favoring that
One
side.
by one, we watched as 3 adult does passed out at about 100 yards. This was a little too far for Kate to shoot, but like I said, this is great practice. Getting your rifle up, finding them in the scope, getting a full picture, trying to hold steady, all of those things you have to do when it's the moment, and they're a lot easier to do if you've practiced that moment.
That deer's looking back over here. You keep watching back here. If you could see that doe in your scope, that big one in the sunshine there. Oh yeah. There's 5 or 6 of them, 7 of them over there. I don't need acorns. A whole bunch of them.
Yes.
Yeah, see her good. Yeah. We're gonna wait. Hopefully something will get a little closer, okay? How many deer have we seen already, do you know? Yeah, it's been quite a few. I thought for a minute they were gonna run over here.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would. They started to come this way. I don't know what spooked them in there, but something turkeys or something are in there.
If you're scared of them, come over here.
There she goes.
We'd seen a lot of deer that morning. All we needed now was that elusive shot opportunity. We'd seen several good-sized deer that morning. Unfortunately, we hadn't seen any of them close enough for a shot. Like I said earlier, we'd agreed that it would be a mature deer Kate would go after. We'd also agreed that 75 yards was about her maximum and 50 or closer would be preferable. We needed to get a lot closer if she was going to get that done, and after the rest of the deer went to bed, she asked me, "Pa, can we move to the other side of the field? And I told her, you know, it's your hunt, so we can do whatever you want. But understand, we're going to need to be really careful and do a really good job of brushing in our blind so we don't get caught.
You ready to try again?
Should.
Okay, and be careful.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to get a deer?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Hopefully.
We are. We will.
Hopefully.
We'll get a deer. As long as you're careful, we'll get our chance.
We spent over an hour meticulously moving and brushing in that blind, and I really did believe we had done a fine job and we were going to get our chance. And about an hour into the afternoon sit, a hen turkey with a whole flock of young'uns came walking by at less than 15 yards. Our camouflage job had obviously fooled them. The only problem we had was I decided not to bring the shotgun along, even though Katie did have a fall turkey tag as well.
I saw turkeys.
You forgot shotgun.
We want to get a deer, don't we?
I want to get a turkey.
We've just got the day for a deer. We got lots of time for turkeys. Okay? That's a pretty good bunch of young'uns there, huh? Well, in the fall, you can shoot hens or toms, but there's no reason to shoot a hen. There's plenty of toms out here. Leave them hens go so then you'll have more young like that one did. You know what I mean?
But you forgot the shotgun.
Oh, poor girl.
Kate was a little bit miffed because I had told her to leave her shotgun in the truck. She had a fall turkey tag, and hens are legal fare in the fall, but I told her, hey, you don't want to harvest a hen that's doing such an obviously good job of raising young. Better you wait for a nice, tender Jake. That's what you want to try to tag in a fall hunt. So, of course, not 10 minutes later, 4 Jakes came walking out into the field.
I think you have my hat on.
We get our hat on.
Where's the deer at?
No.
What'd you do with them?
I didn't do anything.
Did you smoke them? Are you sure?
We were seeing plenty of game, and I was certain it was just a matter of time. We watched those 4 Jakes work their way across there, and I told Kate, well, you know, this time it's deer or nothing. And to tell the truth, I was beginning to worry just a little bit it might be nothing. And I stayed worried right up until I noticed a buck poking his nose out through the trees.
See him? Can you see him there? He's got to get a little closer.
Looks like he's enjoying himself.
Yeah, easy. He's looking at the turkeys.
This was a pretty nice 6-point, certainly a 2-year-old deer, and he was standing there eating acorns and staring over at the turkeys, and I thought,
Looks like he's eating acorns right now.
if he works his way out here,
I told you they'd be out around 7 o'clock. They were 3 minutes late. That's pretty close. Now all we do is get him over here. Yeah, come here, buddy. Come on out here and see.
He's coming closer. He's coming closer.
Yep, he is.
Kate was sitting patiently, watching, waiting, but every time this buck started working his way out closer, for some reason he'd stop and go the other way just as many steps. I could tell it was starting to wear on her a little bit. This buck would get within 80 or 90 yards only to turn around and move another 20 farther away. Even when the turkeys came in and started working up in her direction, the buck just hung out there, eating, picking away. He just wouldn't close that extra 20 or 30 yards she needed for a safe shot. And I knew sooner or later it was going to get too dark for her to even try. And then finally, he started moving at us again, only to pull up short and look. Here was a doe walking right out alongside our blind. She was well within range, working her way in. All she needed to do now was step clear of the buck and get out into Katie's shooting lanes, and she was going to get a chance. She was finally clear of the other deer, just a few more steps, and then something spun her around. She turned completely around, looked out across the field, and then went back the way she came. And unfortunately, she took the other deer with her. A coyote had run out in the field, and that's all it took. Yes, that is the face of true disappointment, just in case you were wondering. Kate was within seconds of having a shot at that doe when a coyote stepped into the far corner of the hayfield, and that's all it took to send her and that 6-point running. Now all I could do was try to reassure Kate that we still had a little time and she might get another chance if she just sat it out. We sat there in some despair with only minutes left, and then that kind of looked like a buck walking out of the popples. It was a dandy buck, 8 or 9 points, at least 2 years old, maybe 3. And then the 6-point from earlier followed him out. Another deer, a spike this time, came working into the field. All Kate needed now was for one of these deer to get close enough, and we were going to snatch victory from the very jaws of defeat. We watched as the 6-point and the spike did a little sparring. We needed them to quit fooling around and come a little closer. This was certainly good entertainment, but I was starting to experience a little fear. If they kept this up, we might run out of daylight before Kate ever got her chance.
Yes, I know. I'm filming them. He's going over there to talk to them other boys.
And then the 9-point, the deer that was closest to Kate's shooting distance, decided to go over there and put both of these younger bucks in their place. That was all well and good, except for they were all getting farther away. I really didn't know if Kate realized the gravity of this situation. At least not until I turned and looked at her. And then the spike threw his head up and looked. A doe and 2 fawns were coming out right by the blind again. The big buck might be too far away, but if that doe kept coming, Kate was still going to get her chance. And then, for some reason known only to the deer, I guess, the doe turned around and walked out of the field. Maybe it was the presence of the bucks, maybe we left some scent, maybe anything, but the bottom line was this doe was leaving.
There she goes.
we were down to less than 15 minutes of legal shooting light. Something needed to give, and it needed to give pretty quick. We sat watching that 9-point, and then he looked our way. That spike buck was working his way right out next to the blind. He was going to head right out in front of Kate. Now she was going to have to decide. Was this her deer? We'd talked about it, but... And then she just shook her head and let him go. That is so hard when you've set so long. She was going to wait for the big buck, a mature deer, or nothing at all. The two bigger bucks got together, pushed and shoved a little bit. For Kate, this day, it would be nothing at all.
I think it's just too dark, honey.
So close, and yet no venison. Poor Kate, she was obviously more than disappointed. Actually, I don't think dejected quite covers it. And to tell the truth, I felt a little bad for her. But I also knew deer hunting's never a guaranteed thing. It's hard. It's supposed to be. That's part of what makes it special. And she'd come to know that in the fullness of time. Hey, I want to thank Charlie and Wanda for the great place for us to hunt. And I want to give you a little bit of instigation, a little bit of a push. Going out and taking your young people. The youth season, it's the perfect time to focus on the next generation's path. You know, those first steps down the road less traveled. There's certainly going to be a lot to learn and some disappointing moments, but there's also going to be a lot to celebrate. I hope you get out there. I hope your hunts are successful and challenging and a little fun. And I hope we see a few of you out there doing it. And you have to know if we do, well, we're going to stop and share that cup and a fire, a few deer stories. And if I don't see you out there, friends, well, then I'll wait for you right back here so we can share another adventure from my Wilderness Journal. Thank you, Caitlin, for another great memory.